Chris Watts. On the morning of August 13, 2018, in Frederick, Colorado, a woman named Nicole Atkinson dropped her friend off at home after a business trip. The friend, Shanann Watts, walked through the front door at approximately 1:48 in the morning. By dawn, she was not answering her phone. She missed her OB/GYN appointment. She stopped responding to every message. Atkinson drove back to the house and called police. What investigators found, and what they did not find, would become one of the most closely followed cases in recent American history. Christopher Lee Watts was born on May 16, 1985, in Spring Lake, North Carolina. He attended Pine Forest High School and later trained at NASCAR Technical Institute in Mooresville. Quiet and reserved, he met Shanann Catherine Razuchek through Facebook in 2010. They married on November 3, 2012, and moved to Colorado, purchasing a 5-bedroom home at 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick for $399,000. The family looked perfect from the outside. Shanann sold wellness products for Layvel's Thrive brand and documented their life extensively on social media. Watts worked as a field coordinator at Anadarko Petroleum. But the finances told a different story. The couple had filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy in 2015 with nearly $450,000 in liabilities, roughly $100,000 in combined income, and just $9.51 in savings. In early June of 2018, Watts began seeing Nicole Kessinger, a 30-year-old geologist working for an Anadarko contractor. He told her he was separated and finalizing a divorce. Kessinger was unaware that Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with a son they planned to name Nico. Kessinger later told the Denver Post, "He's a liar. He lied about everything." What happened inside the Watts home that night emerged through confessions given months later. Watts admitted he strangled Shanann after a confrontation about the affair as she lay in bed. He loaded her body and their 2 daughters, who were still alive, into his Anadarko work truck and drove approximately 45 minutes to a remote oil work site known as Survey 319 near Roggen, Colorado. It was a site he knew well from his job. He buried Shanann in a shallow grave. Then, he took the lives of both of his daughters at the location, one by one, and concealed their remains inside separate crude oil storage tanks, forcing them through 8-inch diameter openings. The investigation moved fast. Neighbor Nate Trinastich's doorbell camera captured Watts backing his truck into the garage at around 5 in the morning and loading it. Critically, the footage showed no one else leaving the house, directly contradicting Watts's claim that Shanann had left with the girls. Trinastich told officers, "He is not acting right." On August 14th, Watts gave eerily flat television interviews, pleading for his family's return. Standing on his porch and speaking to reporters without displaying the kind of distress investigators expected from a man whose pregnant wife and 2 daughters had vanished without a trace. He rocked on his heels. He looked at the ground. He spoke about wanting them back in a voice that revealed almost nothing. The performance convinced almost no one. The next day, CBI agent Tammy Lee administered a polygraph. Watts scored -18, well past the deception threshold of approximately -4. The results were definitive. After being shown the numbers, he confessed to taking Shanann's life but falsely claimed she had harmed the children first, a story that contradicted every piece of evidence and that investigators did not believe for a moment. He was arrested on August 15th. All 3 were recovered the following day. A full and detailed confession came on February 18th, 2019, during a 5-hour interview at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. Watts admitted for the first time that he was solely responsible for all 3, and that his daughters had been alive during the 45-minute drive to the oil site. He described what happened at Survey 319 in a level tone that investigators found chilling in its detachment. On November 6, 2018, Watts pleaded guilty to all 9 charges, including 3 counts of first-degree taking of life, 2 additional counts for victims under 12, unlawful termination of pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with remains. Weld County DA Michael Rourke took the most severe sentencing option off the table at the Razuchek family's request, as they did not want to endure years of appeals. On November 19th, Judge Marcelo Kopkow sentenced Watts to 5 life sentences without parole, plus 84 additional years. The judge called it perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases I have seen. Shanann's father, Frank Razuchek, addressed Watts in the courtroom. "You monster." Watts remains at Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, transferred under the Interstate Corrections Compact. He has filed no appeals. The house at Saratoga Trail sold for $650,000 in October 2024. But while Watts was caught within days, the next case involved someone who evaded investigators for over 3 decades, taunting them the entire time. Dennis Rader. On January 15, 1974, a family of 4 in Wichita, Kansas, was found inside their home. They had been bound, and none had survived. It was the beginning of a pattern that would terrorize a city for years, then go silent for decades, then return with a single piece of technology that ended everything. Dennis Lynn Rader was born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, the eldest of 4 sons. He graduated from Wichita Heights High School in 1963, served in the U.S. Air Force from 1966 to 1970, reaching the rank of Staff Sergeant, and married Paula Dietz on May 22, 1971. They had 2 children, Carrie and Brian. He earned a bachelor's degree in Administration of Justice from Wichita State University in 1979. He worked at ADT Security Services, installing home security alarms for families who were seeking protection from the very person now entering their houses to wire them. He later became a compliance officer in Park City, Kansas, known locally for his strict enforcement of code violations and his enthusiasm for issuing citations over minor infractions. He was president of the Congregation Council at Christ Lutheran Church and a Cub Scout leader who taught young boys how to tie knots, the same kinds he used on his victims. Rader coined his own name for the press, BTK. Between 1974 and 1991, he took the lives of 10 people across Wichita. His victims included Catherine Bright, 21, whose brother Kevin survived and remains the only known BTK survivor. He targeted Shirley Vian, 24, Nancy Fox, 25, after which he called police the next morning to report it himself. Maureen Hedge, 53, his own neighbor 6 doors away. Vicky Wegerle, 28, whom he accessed by posing as a telephone repairman. And Dolores Davis, 62, his final known victim. Rader sent taunting letters, poems, and packages to police and media throughout his active years, referring to planned attacks as projects with code names. After 1979, he went publicly silent for 25 years. Investigators believed BTK might have passed away or moved. Then, in January 2004, after the Wichita Eagle published a 30th anniversary article on the unsolved case, Rader, reportedly bored, resumed his taunting communications. Over the next year, he sent more than 10 messages to media outlets and law enforcement. In January 2005, he asked police a question that would end his freedom: whether a floppy disk could be traced back to the person who sent it. They placed a classified ad in the Wichita Eagle, using a name he had given them: Rex, it will be okay. Rader trusted the answer. On February 16th, he sent a purple 1.44 megabyte Memorex floppy disk to KSAS-TV. The disk had been wiped clean, or so Rader believed, but forensic analysts recovered metadata from a deleted Microsoft Word document still embedded on the disk. The metadata contained two pieces of information: the name Dennis and the words Christ Lutheran Church. A simple internet search for those two terms together revealed Dennis Rader as president of the church council. DNA was then obtained from his daughter Carrie's medical records and confirmed a familial match to biological evidence from the 1974 scene. Rader was arrested on February 25, 2005, 9 days after sending the disk. 31 years of terror ended because he trusted the police to tell him the truth. On June 27, 2005, Rader pleaded guilty to all 10 counts and calmly recounted each one in court, describing the details in a flat, matter-of-fact tone that horrified the courtroom. On August 18th, Judge Gregory Waller sentenced him to 10 consecutive life sentences, a minimum of 175 years without parole. Kansas had no option for the most severe sentence when his offenses were committed, as it had been reinstated in 1994 after his last known act. Now 80 years old, Rader remains at El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. His daughter Carrie Rawson published A Serial Killer's Daughter in 2019, describing the experience of discovering her father's identity. In August 2023, investigators searched Rader's former Park City property and found personal items linked to the 1976 disappearance of Cynthia Dawn Kinney from Oklahoma. He remains a prime suspect in that case, but has not been charged. But while Rader terrorized an entire city across decades, the next case unfolded behind closed doors in a place literally built to look like paradise. Anthony Todd. On January 13, 2020, federal agents arrived at a home in Celebration, Florida, the Disney-developed master-planned community south of Orlando, to serve an arrest warrant for healthcare fraud. The neighborhood was quiet, the streets lined with pastel-colored houses and manicured lawns. When agents entered, they found something far worse than insurance crime. 4 members of a family and the family dog were discovered in advanced decomposition inside the master bedroom. The man they had come to arrest was barely able to stand, claiming he had taken medication in an attempt on his own life. But investigators quickly determined he was the only one responsible for what had happened inside that house. Anthony John Todd was born on September 29, 1975, in Pennsylvania, into a family marked by turmoil. At age 4, he witnessed his father Robert orchestrate a shooting targeting his mother Loretta, who survived but lost an eye. Despite the difficult beginning, Todd earned a master's in physical therapy from Sacred Heart University, where he met Megan Gula, born January 28, 1977. They married, opened family physical therapy in Colchester, Connecticut, and had 3 children: Alexander, Tyler, and Zoe. Around 2017, the family relocated to Celebration, the immaculate community built by Disney just south of Orlando, renting a home for $4,921 per month. To their neighbors, they were a normal family in a picture-perfect town. Behind the postcard image, Todd's finances were collapsing. He was over $100,000 in debt, had taken loans from more than 20 commercial lenders, and was the target of a joint FBI and HHS investigation for healthcare fraud, having billed Medicaid and private insurers more than $130,000 for physical therapy services never provided. On November 21, 2019, federal agents searched his Connecticut offices and he admitted to the fraud. His Connecticut license had already expired in September. The events inside the Celebration home occurred in late December 2019. Todd administered toxic levels of Benadryl to his family members, then smothered and used a blade on them. Megan was the last. He placed religious symbols in their hands and wrapped them in blankets. Then, in perhaps the most disturbing detail of the case, he lived with the remains for approximately 3 weeks, sleeping in the same house and texting relatives from the victims' phones. He told Megan's family they had the flu. He told his own father the same thing. He maintained the illusion of a living household while the evidence of what he had done decomposed around him. It was only the arrival of federal agents on January 13th that led to the discovery. HHS investigators and Osceola County deputies found the remains in the master bedroom. Tot was taken into custody immediately. At trial from April 11th through 14th, 2022, in Osceola County, Tot took the stand and told the jury that Megan had been the one responsible, and that he had not been involved, directly contradicting his own videotaped confessions to investigators. His attorney attempted to portray him as a man who had tried to end his own life after discovering what his wife had done. The jury did not believe it. After more than 6 hours of deliberation, including a period of deadlock that required an Allen charge from the judge to continue, they found him guilty on all 5 counts. 4 counts of the most serious charge and 1 count of cruelty to animals for the family dog, Breezy. Judge Keith Karsten looked at Tot and called him a destroyer of worlds before sentencing him to 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. Tot is currently incarcerated at Santa Rosa Correctional Institution Annex in Milton, Florida. An appeal was filed April 22, 2022, and transferred to Florida's 6th District Court of Appeal. No ruling has been publicly reported. In July 2024, Tot filed a $9.9 million federal lawsuit from prison alleging his rights were compromised when a 27-page letter to his father was publicly released. But while Todd's case played out in a Florida courtroom, the next one never saw a trial at all, because the person responsible made sure he would never have to answer for what he did. Alan Hall. On the morning of August 29, 2016, in the rural townland of Oakley, outside Ballyjames-Duff, County Cavan, Ireland, a woman arrived at her daughter's house. She found a note taped to the back door. It read, "Please do not come in. Please call the Gardaí." The woman called emergency services at approximately 10:40 in the morning. Inside, officers discovered that 5 members of the same family had lost their lives. The person responsible was already gone. He had taken his own life in the hallway. Alan Haw was approximately 40 years old and the deputy principal of Castle Rahan National School near Ballyjames-Duff. He met his wife Clodagh, born Clodagh Call, in teacher training college. They married in 2000 and built a life together in rural Cavan. Their 3 sons, Liam, Niall, and Ryan, were active in sports and beloved in the tight-knit community. Haw was a GAA supporter, a figure in the local church, and close friends with the parish priest. Colleagues described him as a pillar of the community and a real gentleman. He was the kind of man people trusted without question. That trust made what came next almost impossible for the community to process. But a 2019 Garda Serious Crime Review revealed a very different picture. Hall had exercised coercive control over Clodagh, monitoring her text messages and sharing an email account to track her communications. Investigators discovered he possessed a secret phone used to access deeply harmful material, visited dating sites, and concealed other behaviors from his family. He had seen a counselor from March to June of 2016. In his final session, he wept and said, "People think of me as a pillar of the community. If only they knew." Evidence showed the events of that Sunday night were planned up to a year in advance. 2 weeks before, Hall rearranged furniture so Clodagh's back would face him as she sat on the sofa. He targeted Clodagh first She had defensive injuries to her right hand. He then went upstairs to where his 3 sons slept. Deputy State Pathologist Dr. Michael Curtis testified at the inquest that the identical nature of the injuries was very difficult to believe to be coincidental. After, Haw transferred 2,500 euros from their joint account, wrote a 5-page confession letter, taped the note to the back door, and ended his own life. Toxicology found no substances in his system. What followed the discovery sparked its own crisis in Ireland. All 5 family members were initially buried together at St. Mary's Church, Castlerahan, a decision made in the immediate aftermath that Clodagh family had no power to prevent. Her mother, Mary Call, and sister Jacqueline Connolly were devastated that the man responsible had been placed in the ground beside the people he had taken. Under Irish law, the right to decide on exhumation belonged to Haw's parents as his next of kin, not the victim's family. After intense public outcry, including the grave being vandalized with the word "evil" spray-painted across it, the Haw family eventually agreed to the separation. On May 10, 2017, Haw's remains were exhumed from the family plot, cremated at Glasnevin Cemetery in Dublin, and returned to his relatives. The 2019 Garda review produced an 800-page report that found the original investigation had serious failings, including mishandled CCTV footage, overlooked digital evidence, and the secret phone that was missed entirely during the initial examination of the scene. The report has never been published, and the family has spent years demanding its release. In May 2025, Jacqueline Connolly published Deadly Silence, which won Nonfiction Book of the Year at the Post Irish Book Awards in November 2025. At the ceremony, she publicly appealed to Ireland's new Garda Commissioner to finally release the review so the public could see the full picture of what went wrong. In August 2024, Mary Call filed a planning application to demolish the family home and replace it with a memorial garden dedicated to Clodagh, Liam, Niall, and Ryan. But while Haw's case revealed what can happen behind closed doors in a small community, the next one played out across hundreds of miles of Alaskan wilderness, where a quiet baker spent over a decade hiding what he had done in places no one would ever think to look. Robert Hansen. In June of 1983, a 17-year-old named Cindy Paulson escaped from a man's captivity at Merrill Field Airport in Anchorage, Alaska. Still in handcuffs, she flagged down a passing truck driver on a dark highway. Her account was harrowing. A man had restrained her, assaulted her, and was in the process of loading his bush plane to fly her deep into the Alaskan wilderness. She had managed to break free while his back was turned. When Alaska State Trooper Sergeant Glenn Floth heard her testimony, he did not dismiss it. Instead, he began connecting it to a pattern that had haunted the Anchorage area for over a decade. Women who had gone missing, one after another, without explanation. The trail he followed would lead back to a man that no one in the community would have suspected for a moment. Robert Christian Hansen was born on February 15, 1939, in Esterville, Iowa. He was painfully shy with a severe stutter, crippling acne, and buck teeth, and was relentlessly bullied throughout his childhood. His domineering father forced him to work long hours at the family bakery. Hansen found an outlet in hunting and archery, and in fantasies of retaliation against those who had rejected him. In 1960, he set fire to a school bus garage and served 20 months at Anamosa State Penitentiary, where psychiatrists diagnosed manic depression with periodic episodes and noted what they described as an infantile personality. In 1967, Hansen moved to Anchorage and opened his own bakery, which quickly became a popular local spot. He married Darla Henriksen in 1963 and had 2 children. He became an accomplished big game hunter, setting records cataloged in the Pope and Young Club record books, and obtained a pilot's license that gave him access to the vast Alaskan backcountry, To every person who knew him, he appeared to be a mild-mannered, respectable small businessman who happened to love the outdoors. Law enforcement officers regularly stopped by his bakery for coffee and pastries. Nobody looked at him twice. Between 1971 and 1983, Hansen confessed to taking the lives of 17 women and assaulting an additional 30. He targeted women from Anchorage's transient population during the oil pipeline boom. Individuals who were less likely to be reported missing, less likely to be searched for, and less likely to have anyone advocating on their behalf. His method was calculated and horrifying. He lured victims with offers of payment, restrained them with handcuffs, took them to his home, then flew them in his Piper PA-18 Super Cub bush plane to remote wilderness areas near the Kanick River in the Matanuska-Susitna Valley. Once there, he released them into the wild, gave them a head start, and hunted them with a rifle across terrain that offered almost no chance of survival or escape. Only 12 of his 17 confessed victims have ever been recovered. An aviation map found behind his bed's headboard bore 37 marks. Investigators believe the actual total may be higher than his confession. After Paulson's escape, Sergeant Flothy made the case his priority. He connected the testimony to the pattern of disappearances and began building a profile. FBI profiler John Douglas was brought in and provided an offender profile that matched Hansen almost exactly. An experienced outdoorsman and hunter with low self-esteem, a stutter, a history of perceived rejection by women, and access to remote locations. When Hansen provided an alibi, investigators checked it and found it fell apart immediately. Search warrants were executed on his home and property. Officers uncovered victim jewelry, the firearm with shell casings matching multiple scenes, and the marked aviation map. The evidence was overwhelming. Hansen pleaded guilty to 4 counts and was sentenced on February 18, 1984, to 461 years, plus life without parole. He passed away on August 21, 2014, at age 75, of natural causes at Alaska Regional Hospital. In October 2021, one long unidentified victim known as Horseshoe Harriet was identified as Robin Pelkey through forensic genealogy. If you've made it this far and enjoy deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. But while Hansen evaded detection by choosing victims the system overlooked, the next case involved someone who wore the system's uniform, someone whose job was to catch people exactly like himself. Joseph James DeAngelo. For over a decade, someone was terrorizing communities across California. He broke into homes at night, bound his victims, and left them with trauma that lasted a lifetime. He operated under 3 separate identities that investigators did not connect for decades. And when his DNA was finally uploaded to a public genealogy database in 2017, it led to a man who had once carried a badge. Joseph James DeAngelo Jr. was born on November 8, 1945, in Bath, New York. After Navy service during Vietnam, he earned a degree in criminal justice from Sacramento State University and joined the Exeter Police Department in 1973. In one of the most disturbing ironies in criminal history, he was assigned to help investigate a string of break-ins in Visalia that he himself was committing. He transferred to the Auburn Police Department in 1976, but was fired in 1979 after being caught shoplifting a hammer and dog repellent. He married Sharon Huddle in 1973, and they had 3 daughters. From 1990 until his retirement in 2017, he worked as a truck mechanic at a Save Mart distribution center in Roseville. His confirmed toll across California between 1974 and 1986 was staggering. 13 lives taken, more than 51 assaults, and over 120 burglaries across 11 counties. He operated under 3 identities that law enforcement did not link for decades. as the Visalia ransacker from 1974 to 1975. He committed approximately 120 break-ins and took the life of journalism professor Claude Snelling in 1975 while attempting to take Snelling's daughter. As the East Area Rapist from 1976 to 1979, he carried out more than 51 assaults across the Sacramento region. His preparation was meticulous. He stalked victims for days beforehand, pre-entered their homes while they were away, left ligatures hidden in closets, and unlocked windows so he could return undetected. As the original Night Stalker from 1979 to 1986, he shifted to Southern California and began targeting couples. His victims included Lyman and Charlene Smith, Keith and Patrice Harrington, and 18-year-old Janelle Cruz, his last known victim in May of 1986. For over 2 decades after that, he simply vanished. In 2001, DNA finally linked the East Area Rapist and original Night Stalker as the same person. But the man behind the DNA remained a ghost. True crime writer Michelle McNamara coined the name Golden State Killer in a 2013 Los Angeles Magazine article and worked obsessively on the case until her passing in 2016. Her posthumous book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, became a #1 bestseller in 2018. But the breakthrough came from forensic genetic genealogy. In late 2017, investigator Paul Holes and FBI lawyer Steve Kramer uploaded crime scene DNA to the public database GEDmatch. Retired patent attorney and genetic genealogist Barbara Ray Venter built family trees from distant DNA matches, narrowing the field until it pointed to D'Angelo. Surveillance teams then collected DNA from his car door handle and a discarded tissue in his dustbin. Both were tested. Both matched the crime scene evidence. On April 24, 2018, D'Angelo, then 72 years old, was arrested at his Citrus Heights home while standing in his driveway. It was the first public arrest achieved through investigative genetic genealogy, a technique that has since transformed cold case investigations around the world. Alone in the interrogation room afterward, with no one speaking to him, D'Angelo was captured on a recording muttering to himself, "I did all that." The case was closed after 44 years. On June 29, 2020, in a Sacramento courtroom filled with survivors and families of the deceased, D'Angelo pleaded guilty to 13 counts and 13 kidnapping counts, admitting to 161 additional uncharged offenses in a deal that spared him from the most severe sentence. Many of the survivors, some now in their 70s and 80s, attended the hearing in person. Several addressed him directly. He was sentenced on August 21, 2020, by Judge Michael Bowman to 11 consecutive life sentences without parole. D'Angelo currently resides in protective custody at California State Prison, Corcoran. Lad prosecutor Thien Ho, now Sacramento County DA, published The People vs. The Golden State Killer in November 2025, revealing that prison surveillance showed D'Angelo faking frailty, doing jumping jacks and climbing bunk beds when he believed nobody was watching. But while D'Angelo hid for decades behind a quiet retirement, the next case involved a suspect who had been right there in the file the entire time, overlooked because of a clerical error that would not be discovered for 5 years. Richard Allen. On February 13, 2017, 2 best friends were dropped off at the Monon High Bridge Trail near Delphi, Indiana, a town of approximately 3,000 people. At 2:07 in the afternoon, one of them posted a photo of the other on Snapchat, walking across the historic bridge. Minutes later, she began recording a man in a dark jacket walking behind them. The 43-second video captured him ordering, "Guys, down the hill." Phone data showed movement on the device stopped at approximately 2:32. Their bodies were found the next day near Deer Creek. Both had sustained deep lacerations to the throat. An unspent .40 caliber round was found between them. Richard Matthew Allen was born in September 1972 in Mexico, Indiana. He graduated from North Miami High School in 1991, studied accounting at Ivy Tech Community College, and married Kathy Allen on November 19, 1991. They had a daughter. Allen worked as a Walmart store manager before becoming a pharmacy technician at CVS in Delphi, where he had lived since December 2006. Neighbors described him as quiet and friendly, a heck of a nice guy. He had no criminal history beyond minor traffic issues. The investigation became one of Indiana's largest. Over 26,000 tips were received over the following years. A grainy image of the man on the bridge and the audio clip were released to the public, generating massive national attention, but no arrest. Billboards went up, press conferences were held. The community of Delphi was consumed by the case. But what investigators did not realize was that just 3 days after the events, Allen had voluntarily walked up to a DNR officer and told him he was on the trail that afternoon. He placed himself at the scene. The tip was misfiled under the name Richard Allen Whiteman, a clerical error that combined his name with his street address, and it was marked as cleared. For 5 years, it sat in a folder that nobody opened. In September 2022, volunteer file clerk Kathy Shank discovered the misfiled folder while organizing tips. Officers re-interviewed Allen on October 13th. He became agitated. A search warrant yielded a blue Carhartt jacket and a Sig Sauer P226.40 caliber handgun. The unspent round at the scene was forensically matched to having been cycled through this specific weapon. Allen was arrested October 26, 2022. While held at Westville Correctional Facility awaiting trial, Allen confessed more than 60 times to multiple people, including his wife on recorded phone calls, his mother, prison staff, and a psychologist. In one confession, he described specific details about the scene. His defense team argued the confessions were involuntary, the product of severe mental decline caused by months of prolonged solitary confinement in a facility that placed him under extreme restrictions. Judge Fran Gull blocked the defense's alternative theory, which argued the events were an Odinic ritual carried out by third-party suspects, ruling the theory inadmissible. The trial ran from October 18th to November 11th, 2024, in Carroll County. No DNA, fingerprints, or forensic trace evidence linked Allen to the scene. The prosecution relied on the bullet evidence, Allen's confirmed placement on the trail, witness descriptions of a man appearing muddy and bloody, and his numerous confessions. After approximately 20 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all 4 counts. On December 20th, 2024, Judge Gull sentenced Allen to 130 years, 65 years per count served consecutively. Allen was transferred in July 2025 to the Lexington Assessment and Reception Center in Oklahoma under the Interstate Corrections Compact. His defense filed a 113-page appellate brief with the Indiana Court of Appeals on December 19, 2025. His wife, Kathy, maintains his innocence. But while Allen was caught because of a file that resurfaced after 5 years, the next case was solved in just 6 weeks. Through a combination of technology that the suspect, a student of criminal behavior, should have understood better than anyone. Brian Kohberger. In the early morning hours of November 13, 2022, someone entered a house at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, through a kitchen sliding glass door. Inside, 4 University of Idaho students were asleep. By the time it was over, all 4 were gone. Kaylee Goncalves, 21, had sustained more than 20 wounds. Madison Mogan, 21, was found beside her on the 3rd floor. Zana Kernodle, 20, had sustained over 50 wounds, many of them defensive. Her last activity on TikTok was at 4:12 in the morning. Ethan Chapin, 20, Kernodle's boyfriend, was found in her 2nd-floor bed. 2 roommates in the house survived. One of them, Dylan Mortensen, told investigators she heard noises and saw a masked figure in black walking past her door. A tan leather Ka-Bar knife sheath stamped USMC was left behind on a bed. It contained single-source male DNA on the button snap. The weapon itself was never recovered. Brian Christopher Kohberger was born on November 21, 1994, in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Described as socially awkward and academically driven, he earned degrees at Northampton Community College and DeSales University, where he studied under forensic psychologist Catherine Ramsland, known for interviewing BTK's Dennis Rader. He enrolled in a PhD program in criminology at Washington State University in Pullman in 2022, just a 15-minute drive from Moscow. He served as a teaching assistant and posted a research survey on Reddit asking former offenders about their decision-making during crimes. The investigation moved with remarkable speed. A white Hyundai Elantra was captured on surveillance cameras making multiple passes by the house between 3:29 and 4:20 in the morning. The vehicle circled the area repeatedly before and after the estimated time of the events. A Washington State University police officer queried campus vehicle registrations and found one white Hyundai Elantra belonging to Brian Kohberger, a graduate student living just 15 minutes away in Pullman. A critical detail emerged. The car had been re-registered with Washington State plates on November 18th, just 5 days after the events, as though Kohberger was trying to change the vehicle's appearance in databases. His cell phone told its own story. It went dark at 2:47 in the morning and reconnected at 4:48 south of Moscow. Records showed the phone had pinged near the victim's home at least 12 times between June and November 2022, almost exclusively during late-night hours when no legitimate reason for being there existed. The DNA from the sheath was uploaded to genealogy databases. FBI analysts using GED Match and MyHeritage identified a close familial match. Investigators then conducted a trash pull at the Kohberger family home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, on December 27th. The material recovered yielded DNA that was determined to be almost certainly from the biological father of the sheath's contributor. It was the final piece. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home on December 30th, 2022, just 47 days after the events. Officers found him standing in the kitchen at 4 in the morning, wearing latex examination gloves and methodically placing household rubbish into separate Ziploc bags, as though he knew they were coming and was trying to prevent DNA collection. After extensive pretrial proceedings, including a change of venue to Ada County in Boise under Judge Stephen Hippler and defense challenges to the DNA evidence, the trial was set for August 2025. But on July 2nd, 2025, Kohberger pleaded guilty to all charges, answering yes when asked if he had taken each victim by name. On July 23rd, Judge Hippler sentenced him to 4 consecutive life sentences without parole plus 10 years for burglary, $250,000 in fines, and $20,000 in restitution. He waived all appeal rights. No motive was ever disclosed. Kohberger is held at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution in Kuna. Reports in January 2026 indicated officials were negotiating to transfer him out of state. But while Kohberger studied criminal behavior in a classroom, the next suspect built a successful real estate empire while hiding something far more disturbing on 95 acres of fenced-off property. Todd Kohlhepp. On November 3, 2016, Spartanburg County investigators in South Carolina tracked cell phone signals to a rural property in Woodruff. When deputies arrived, they heard banging and screaming coming from inside a padlocked shipping container. After cutting through 5 padlocks, they found a woman chained by the neck and ankle in the back of a 30 by 15-foot metal box. She had been held for 65 days. Her name was Kala Brown. The first words out of her mouth were, "Todd Kohlhepp shot Charlie Carver 3 times in the chest." Born Todd Christopher Samsell on March 7, 1971, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Kohlhepp displayed extreme behavioral problems from a very young age. He was expelled from Boy Scouts, spent 3.5 months in a psychiatric facility as a minor, and by 15 had been charged with kidnapping and assaulting a 14-year-old girl in Tempe, Arizona. He pleaded guilty to the kidnapping charge, was sentenced to 15 years, and earned a computer science degree while incarcerated. A judge noted he was behaviorally and emotionally dangerous and likely could not be rehabilitated. Released in August 2001, Kohlhepp moved to South Carolina, earned a business degree from the University of South Carolina upstate, and obtained a real estate license in 2006 by lying about his felony conviction on the application. He built TKA Real Estate into a successful firm with 12 to 15 agents, drove a BMW, and was recognized as a top-selling agent. In May 2014, he purchased nearly 95 acres in Woodruff and erected an $80,000 chain-link fence around it. Between 2014 and 2016, an Amazon account linked to his name posted 140 product reviews that would later read like a confession hidden in plain sight. On padlocks, he wrote about having 5 on a shipping container and how they would sure slow them down. On a shovel, he wrote that it was for when you have to hide the bodies. On a knife, he posted, "Haven't used it on anyone yet, but I am keeping the dream alive." Nobody flagged the reviews. Nobody connected them to anything. They sat online for years, visible to anyone who cared to look. The reviews were not dark humor from a bored shopper. They were written by a man who had already taken 4 lives. On November 6, 2003, Kohlhepp had walked into Superbike Motorsports in Chesney, South Carolina, and shot 4 employees in under a minute. Owner Scott Ponder, 30, bookkeeper Beverly Guy, 52, service manager Brian Lucas, 29, and mechanic Chris Sherbert, 26. He reportedly targeted the shop because staff had mocked him when he fell off a motorcycle during a test ride. The case went cold for 13 years. No suspect was ever identified. The families of the 4 victims spent over a decade waiting for answers that seemed like they would never come. In December 2015, he hired married couple Johnny Coxey, 29, and Megan McCraw Coxey, 26, to work on his property. He shot Johnny and held Megan captive before taking her life on Christmas Day. In August 2016, he took the life of Charles David Carver, 32, and chained Carver's girlfriend, Kala Brown, inside the shipping container on his property. She was held for 65 days and assaulted daily. Kohlhepp posted on Carver's Facebook claiming the couple had left town. After Brown's dramatic rescue, Kohlhepp was arrested the same day. In custody, he confessed to all 7 cases, including details about the 2003 Superbike incident that had never been made public. He led investigators to locations on his property where remains were recovered. For the families of the Superbike victims, it was the first time in 13 years they had any answers at all. On May 26, 2017, he pleaded guilty before Judge Durham Cole and received 7 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 60 years. He waived all appeal rights. He is incarcerated at Broad River Correctional Institution in Columbia, South Carolina. In October 2025, Fox Carolina revealed he was using his prison tablet to plot selling autographed memorabilia from his crimes. He was immediately moved to supermax confinement with no visitors, no phone, no tablet, and 24-hour camera surveillance. But while Kohlhepp hid behind a real estate license, the final case on this list involved someone whose cover was the most powerful of all: a military uniform, a decorated career, and command of an entire airbase. Russell Williams. On the evening of January 28, 2010, a 27-year-old woman named Jessica Lloyd went missing from her home near Belleville, Ontario, Canada. A massive search was launched. Police found distinctive tire tracks in the snow near her property. During a canvass on Highway 37 on February 4th, an officer noticed that the tires on a Nissan Pathfinder matched the impressions. The vehicle belonged to a man no one would have imagined capable of what investigators were about to uncover. He was the commanding officer of the largest and busiest military airbase in Canada. David Russell Williams was born on March 7, 1963, in Bromsgrove, England. His family immigrated to Canada in 1968. After his parents' divorce, Williams was raised by his mother and stepfather, and eventually studied economics and political science at the University of Toronto, Scarborough, graduating in 1986. He joined the Canadian Forces in 1987, earned his pilot's wings in 1990, and rose through the ranks with distinction. He flew VIP aircraft for Queen Elizabeth II, Prince Philip, and Prime Minister Chrétien. He commanded Camp Mirage, Canada's secret logistics facility near Dubai, and oversaw major aircraft acquisitions, including the C-17 Globemaster III. On July 15, 2009, Williams reached the pinnacle of his career when he was appointed Wing Commander of CFB Trenton, also known as 8 Wing. It was Canada's largest and busiest military airbase and served as the arrival point for the repatriation of Canadian soldiers who had fallen in Afghanistan. He oversaw the solemn ceremonies as flag-draped caskets were carried from aircraft. He married Mary Elizabeth Harriman, an associate director of the Heart and Stroke Foundation, in 1991. Colleagues described him as intensely focused, disciplined, and brilliantly capable. He was considered one of the most promising officers of his generation. His known offenses followed a clear escalation. Between September 2007 and November 2009, he committed 82 fetish burglaries across Tweed, Belleville, and Ottawa's Orleans neighborhood, breaking into homes to steal undergarments and photographing himself wearing them. In September 2009, he escalated to assaulting 2 women in Tweed, binding and photographing them. In November 2009, he targeted Corporal Marie-France Comeau, 38, a military flight attendant under his own command in her Brighton, Ontario home. He waited behind her furnace, then attacked. She pleaded, "I don't want to die." Afterward, he drove to Ottawa for a meeting about purchasing a transport plane. Then, in January 2010, he took Jessica Lloyd from her Belleville home, assaulted her at his Tweed cottage, and ended her life. He recorded 325 photographs and later captured screenshots of news coverage of her disappearance. After the tire tracks were matched, Williams was called to Ottawa Police Headquarters on February 7, 2010. There, OPP Detective Sergeant Jim Smith conducted what has been called one of the most remarkable interrogations in criminal history. Over approximately 10 hours, Smith sat across from the colonel and methodically presented evidence piece by piece, while exploiting a single vulnerability that he had identified within the first minutes: Williams's desire to protect his wife, Mary Elizabeth Harriman, from public humiliation. When Smith mentioned that officers were at that very moment tearing apart his wife's dream home and that her name would be dragged through the press, Williams's composure cracked. He leaned forward, placed his elbows on the table, and said, "Call me Russ." From that moment, he confessed to everything. He directed police to 2 hidden hard drives in his Ottawa home containing nearly 3,000 photographs and a meticulous catalog of every offense he had ever committed. He drew a map on a sheet of paper and handed it to Smith. It led officers directly to Jessica Lloyd's body. On October 18, 2010, Williams pleaded guilty to all 88 charges. 2 counts of the most serious charge, 2 assaults, 2 forcible confinements, and 82 break-and-enter offenses. Justice Robert F. Scott sentenced him to 2 life sentences with no parole eligibility for 25 years, declaring, "The depths of depravity demonstrated by Russell Williams have no equal." The military response was swift and total. Governor General David Johnston revoked his commission. His medals were destroyed. His uniform was burned, believed to be the first time in Canadian military history that such an action had been taken. His commission scroll was shredded, and his Nissan Pathfinder was crushed in a compactor. Despite all of this, he retains a $60,000 annual military pension that is protected by statute and cannot be revoked. Williams is incarcerated at Port Cartier Institution, a maximum security federal prison in Quebec, approximately 800 kilometers from Ottawa. He turned 62 in March 2025. No parole hearings or applications have been reported. His earliest eligibility date is October 2035. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.